Hi everyone, today I want to talk about anti-Black racism and allyship. These are concepts that I think a lot about, I teach a lot about them, I talk a lot about them across social media, as you will have already have seen. But in this moment, right now, in the thick of COVID, I think it is so important that I use my voice, chime in with the collective on talking about these pressing issues. And my message isn't just for white people, although yes, my message definitely is targeted at white people. It is also for other communities of color that need to stand up by using our voice and actions to provide allyship in interrupting anti-Black racism. And I'm thinking in particular about people from my community, South Asian communities. We often largely benefit from the efforts that people from across Black communities engage in order to promote anti-racism and anti-oppression. And when I say we benefit from the efforts, we can be doing so much more to use our voice and actions to fight against anti-racism on a whole, disrupting white supremacy on a whole. But in particular here, we need to use our voices more, our actions more to combat, to interrupt, dismantle, disrupt anti-Black racism. This is such a hard time for all of us as a collective, as people of color watching what is happening in society. But in particular, we can see how the inequities that have an adverse impact on people from Black communities is highly prevalent and highly visible. We knew that these inequities existed pre-COVID, but during COVID, it feels more amplified because what we're seeing is not only acts of police brutality, civilian brutality. Police brutality, I'm thinking of George Floyd. Civilian brutality, I'm thinking of Ahmaud Arbery. I'm thinking of the disproportionate arrests that are taking place as it relates to policing around physical distancing. I'm thinking about the disproportionate rates of COVID's impact on people from Black communities across the US. In Canada, it is we do not know, because if we are tracking the data, we are not sharing it, which is another example of systemic racism, because data matters, because it shows how racism and white supremacy permeate our systems and practices. So if this feels heavy for you, it makes sense, because this is a heavy time, because we're seeing the inequities. They're on display in a way that we have never seen before. And for a lot of us, especially those of us on the front lines of doing equity advocacy work, it feels really lonely, because yes, we are virtually able to commune and we are engaging and we are doing our best, but I miss my people. I miss being in the trenches, communing with people in person in order to work and advocate and fight, disrupt all of the inequities we're seeing. I want to talk about allyship, because allyship matters. So many people ask me on the regular, what can I be doing as a white person, as a person of color, to be an ally on a whole, but more specifically as it relates in this context to anti-Black, be an ally as it relates to people from Black communities, but interrupting anti-Black racism. And there are a number of things that you can be doing. First of all, figure out what are your biases that you hold as it relates to Black people, because your ability to use your voice and change your behavior, use your actions, your power privilege to disrupt anti-Black racism will directly tie to the negative biases, the messages, meaning that your brain holds about Black people. So you need to figure out what your biases are, take Harvard's implicit association test, the race IAT in particular. Secondly, it is really important that you have a deep understanding of power, privilege, supremacy, how systems of supremacy, power, privilege, racial supremacy in particular permeate our systems that enable us to be in a place where Black people experience racism as it relates to healthcare, housing, employment, justice, and so much more. And then what we do once we have this understanding in hand is we start to use the power and privilege that we have. So for example, as a brown person watching the racism directed towards Black people, for me to use my power and privilege as a way to disrupt. On disruption, we need to listen and hear the stories so that we have a better sense of the lived experience of how racism has an adverse impact on people from Black communities, and then using your voice and your actions to interrupt. And when I say using your voice and your actions, I mean actually speaking up and speaking out. So talking about this with your family and your friends and naming the fact that we are seeing all these racist inequities happening right now, having conversations about this, but not just that, calling out the inequities we're seeing. So in the workplace, ensuring that our recruitment practices are anti-racist as it relates to how Black people are treated, making sure that we're stepping up as mentors and sponsors and advocates to make sure that Black people, Black professionals, team members we're working with have opportunities, that we're calling out the biases that we see as it relates to who advances, but more specifically in society, calling upon our politicians, our leaders, and others to do more to address the systemic racism that Black people experience. We need to ensure that we continue to be in a place where we are listening, hearing the stories, and using our power and privilege, our voices to interrupt. As you can see, I feel really passionate about this, and like so many people across social media who you are hearing, speaking and sharing, I feel like we could be doing so much more. And it really hurts. And it hurts as a person of color, as a brown person. I can't imagine what it feels like to be Black in this moment right now. And this is why I call upon all of us from across cultural communities to step up in serving, as standing as allies to people from Black communities in this moment.